Hey everybody, welcome to JB's Garage. Heated hand grips for your snowblower. Do you need them? Are they worth it? Let's find out.
So here's my snowblower, ladies and gentlemen. This is an ARIENS. I got it back in 2013. It's about 6 years old now, and it's a 28-inch. It's got the impeller kit on it, so this thing is an absolute animal. I can put snow into my neighbor's yard. If you want to watch that video, check it out. It's on my channel, all right? But I actually had some old heated hand grips on here, and you can see these are pretty worn out and beat up, all right? I bought a cheap set on eBay. They were made for ATVs and snowmobiles, and it only cost about $25, maybe $30. And I learned how to jury rig them myself to the alternator on your snowblower that powers your light. Okay, so I figured out how to hook them up, and guess what? They worked for about 3-4 years. Then the other day we had some ridiculously cold weather, and this on-off switch here was stuck on low, and they didn't heat up at all. And I was so frustrated. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna buy the ARIENS set, and we'll slap them on. So today I'm gonna show you guys how to put them on. I think they're worth it. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. So what I'm gonna do now is remove the old wiring and the old heat coils that are pretty much just taped on to these handles. Now there were some original handles on here. It was just a coat of rubber. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, that was not enough. I felt the cold metal right through that rubber on these things, and it was bad. My hands would go numb. So these heated hand grips did do their time, and they helped me out quite a bit.
All right, so here I am down by the handlebars, and you can take a look. Here is the coil tape. A little hard to see on camera, but there is a thin set of wires inside, and I'll try to get the yellow side here on camera just so you can see. Those thin little silver wires are the ones that actually create the heat, keep your hands warm, all right? And I had to actually rip off quite a bit of electrical tape that I held these on with. Now, maybe somebody out there said I put them on wrong or something along those lines, but for 4 years they worked. You know, I don't really see a problem there, but they just didn't last quite as long as I hoped they would, all right? And being a homeowner, you don't want to keep dumping money into something, so, you know, I learned my lesson with this. Maybe I should have just went with the ARIENS right off the get-go.
So now here is the old wiring harness, and it basically splits off like a Y and goes to each handle. Now, I mean, it is kind of messy looking. It probably doesn't make much sense right now, but it does have a little fuse here, and then it runs down, and you can see past here, it runs right up to the alternator. And I basically spliced the wires here from the headlight that comes on these snowblowers, and inside here I spliced the wires, connected it right to it, and boom, it worked. You know, it worked just fine. So there you go. So kind of see how I connected the old method. All right. So now here we are on the side of the snowblower, and apparently from the instructions, which I did read, all right, this little clip comes undone. This cord that runs here, I'll snip this out, remove that. And then I'm basically gonna remove this whole wiring harness, which runs right up the side of the handlebars here. Once that's out, they gave you a whole new setup. So you're literally taking the old one off, getting rid of it, and putting the new one on. Pretty simple setup. Way to go, ARIENS. So now you can see I disconnected the cord, cut out this little clip here, and now this cord is pretty much just gonna come right off. So once I rip it out, we'll be all set and ready to get the new one on. Pretty cool, pretty easy. So one last step to get this whole cord off, I'm gonna follow this cord up here, and if we look at where it connects, if we follow that yellow wire, that right there in the background, up here, this is the plug for the headlight. Now it's a little blurry here, I can't exactly, there it is. All right, so I'm gonna take that out, open that up, and then part of the new attachment plugs right in there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I kind of have to make an ultimatum here, or pick a path. And when I take this switch off, which I took out the 3 screws, if I flip it up, this is where some people are probably gonna rip on me. Take a look. I got this like awkward triangular hole that I had to drill out. It just did not drill right. It was a mess. I remember doing that. And then I had to drill out these 3 little screw holes to screw down this little switch. Now, this is gonna look pretty ugly if I just leave it here with the whole dash assembly. It's just gonna look nasty. So I think what I'm gonna do is just leave this here, maybe until I can get some plastic cover or something else, some kind of little shroud to cover that. I don't know, we'll see. But in the meantime, I think I'm just gonna snip the wires right there at the bottom. Screw this back on, let it be, and then somewhere over here I'm going to drill a nice, I think it's a 1/2 inch hole. I'm going to check, but I think that's what we'll do. All right, so here is one last final look at the old wiring assembly. So this clip up here went to the headlight. This clip here went to the alternator on the snowblower. These clips split off in a Y to each handlebar to heat the hand grips. Here is your fuse, and then here's the old coils that wrap around the handlebars. Now, I was looking at the handlebars. I'm gonna clean these off real quick. And then I was looking at these. They have screw holes on each one. And I thought I was actually gonna have to drill some holes. They do give you tiny holes already on the new handles, and I'll show you those in a second. But I thought that was kind of a nice thing, because when I go to pull back on this snowblower, when I'm backing it up, well, I'm afraid I'm gonna rip the handle right off this handle here. So I wanna make sure it's bolted down. They also give you some epoxy, but I don't fully trust that. I wanna make sure it's screwed down as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so one little thing I like to do when I'm drilling holes into metal is I like to do a step approach. I like to start with a smaller bit, a little bit bigger bit, and then I gotta take this to a 1/2 inch bit. I have to get a 1/2 inch hole here on this dash, and I'm gonna put it somewhere right around here, just above this red circle, because there's nothing underneath. I already checked. It's a clear open space, so this thing will go right in without a problem. So I'm going to use a step approach. I'm going to do a smaller bit first, a medium-sized bit, and then I'll work my way up to a 1/2. Should get me a nice clean hole that way. On the last hole I drilled on this thing, I was a new homeowner. Learn things as you go, right?
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we have a 1/2 inch hole, perfectly round, lots of metal shards around. So what I'm going to do is quickly vacuum these up, and then we'll be ready to install that switch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next step, I'm taking a look at putting this switch in. And if we look really quick, I always get so confused about electrical switches. I'm not an electrical guy. Never have been, probably never will be. But I'm looking at these two little metal tabs on the bottom here. And with those, what confuses me is, should this be on the top or should this be on the bottom? And which plug is going to plug into these? Little things like that can actually make or break this whole operation, I guess. I don't know. So I'm going to kind of follow this, and when I'm looking closely at the details, it doesn't say anything about this, but I'm going to assume that that is that tab right there. So when we put this in, that tab will be on the bottom facing toward the driver of the snowblower, so to speak. All right, so that's how we'll do this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so now our switch is in. Pretty sturdy little switch. I've seen some of these be like junk, and this is actually a pretty thick switch here, and I got the threads pretty far down with that nut. So we'll see how it goes. And underneath, taking a look, see I got my bottom tab closest to me. All right, so we'll move on with our operation here. All right, so now let me show you the next piece of our operation here. So what we have is the wiring harness from the alternator to the heated hand grips and also to the light. So over here, this is going to go to our alternator. It does give some little clips to kind of position this cable on the snowblower, which we clipped off on the last part. So they give you new ones, which is nice. Okay. Then over here, this is going to go to one of your heated hand grips. This is going to go to the light. This is going to go to the other heated hand grip. And then these two are going to go to the switch. Now, I'm going to have to read the directions. Maybe it'll say red to the lower prong on the switch or the yellow to the prong. I don't know. I'm going to check the instructions again, but we'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So now the harness is plugged into the alternator. I ran it up the handlebar here. I'm going to strap it down toward the end once I get everything kind of finalized where it's got to go. But if I look back here, it's plugged into the headlight. I have my plug ready for the handle grip on this side, the right side. And I made sure that it was out of the way of this cable that attaches to this lever, so that way it's not going to get bumped. Now, I may have to tuck it on the inside here tightly, or maybe I can loop it around the outside so that way it's not going to become a problem. Now the cord, if we follow the yellow, the one spot I couldn't find here, there's a tab where it can lock into, and it is way up inside
here. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right there. And they give you some tabs, and there's another one here too. But honestly, I don't know where it goes. So, and that one is right there. It's standing free, but I'm sure this thing will be fine. I don't see it moving anywhere. So that's that. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see where it goes. Now over here, I have my remaining left side handle plug, which I'll plug in momentarily. And this is the confusing part, and there's no clear directions for this. Does this red tab go on the bottom of the switch, or does it go where the blue one is? Should these be reversed? I don't know. So we're gonna kind of take a chance here. We'll see what happens. I guess worst case scenario, the switch will operate backwards. I can always just flip-flop them. Piece of cake, but I don't know until I get this thing running. And I don't want to test it out until I got the heated hand grips going. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is ARIENS gives you these little plugs for the bottom of the handles. Now I'm not sure exactly what these are for, but you know what? I'm gonna plug them in anyways, okay? So they do take a little bit of force. You almost need a hammer to get them in. All right, so I'm gonna shove it in. And again, I already tried cleaning most of this stuff off the handle. I'm not too worried about it. It's pretty stuck and tacked on there. So doing this with gloves on and one hand is not exactly the simplest thing, but we'll drive it in. And done. There we go. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we ran into one tiny dilemma. I put these handlebars on here to kind of see how they fit. Now they are kind of loose to go on, but I feel as they go on further, they kind of snug down, and then they kind of grab a little bit better. Now these cords will be tucked to underneath. You won't even see them pretty much, and they'll plug in where they gotta go. It doesn't specify left or right on either of these handles, as far as I know. I checked and I'm not seeing anything. But the one concern I have is they give you this screw hole here. My goal was to put a screw in because they have a matching hole here. Now, when I put it on, I'm shy by about maybe 1/8 of an inch. Like they're just not perfectly lining up, and you can maybe see a glimmer of light through there, maybe. And so they're just not lining up. Now, I don't want to drill through here only because I don't want to do any damage to this rubber. There could be heat, little cords inside this handle grip that I don't want to ruin. So I just don't want to chance anything yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the directions, and I'm going to put some epoxy on here as they give you, and I'm going to show that in a minute. And I'm just going to twist it on, just like so, into its spot where it's got to go, and I'm going to ram it on there, and I'm just going to let it sit for 24 hours without being touched. We'll give it a shot. If for some reason I actually yank off the handlebar, then I'll go back in and I'll maybe attempt to screw later, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so here is the epoxy that they give you. It's just this little container, right? So I'm guessing it's all in the middle of this little circle here. And it says, remove protective film, push down on the center of the kit to form a cup, mix it thoroughly and apply. Now epoxy is usually 2 parts. You mix it together, it becomes this really strong glue. And sometimes they harden within a minute, sometimes they harden within 5 minutes. I'm gonna let this sit for 24 hours. That's what I heard on some instructions before. So I'm just gonna let this whole thing sit for 24 hours. I'm not gonna turn the snowblower on, I'm just gonna let it harden right up. All right. One thing I also learned with using epoxy is you always mix it on a junk piece of paper or some kind of wax paper or something like that, only because sometimes you spill it and you go from there. So I'm gonna open this up, mix it up, and start applying. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I have installed this. I put epoxy on the handlebar, and I kind of see why they now give you that little butt end cap. And here's what it looks like underneath. Now, they don't give you a whole lot of epoxy, so you gotta kind of use it as best you can, kind of sparingly, to see where you can kind of even it out. So I may have used a little bit too much on this one side. I don't know, we'll see. But you kind of see where that butt end cap, because this handlebar slides all the way right up to that butt end. So I guess they use it for the purpose of using and spreading the epoxy. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get this cord out of the way. I'm gonna feed the cord first into the space where it's gonna go. And then, pardon my poor camera job here, but then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide it on, and I'm gonna kind of twist it around a little bit. It may pop out the cord here, but I'm not worried about that. I'm gonna twist it around, and then I'm pushing on, twisting, so it's kind of spreading it evenly. Now I kind of have it in the direction I want to go, and I'm gonna jam this thing all the way on
until it's pretty much right up to that hole. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I got it. It's all the way on. All right, so there you go. It is all the way on there. That epoxy was pretty strong stuff. It was actually starting to dry up pretty quick. Had some real tack to it. They didn't give you a lot, so you really got to be careful on how much you're using. But I'm pushing and pushing and pushing on this thing. Same thing on this guy. And it's on there. I mean, it's not going anywhere. So I'm gonna give that 24 hours to dry. I'm gonna fire this thing up in a day or so, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so just to wrap it up, I'm going to connect these little plugs, and then our switch is all plugged in, and then I'll zip tie the cord here. Probably about less than another 5 minutes worth of work. All in all, this job took about an hour to do. Not too hard. We'll give it a shot.
Whoa, what happened, ladies and gentlemen? It's summertime. Let me explain, all right? That video was shot in February of 2019, and basically we didn't get a whole lot of snow to really test out those heated hand grips. But I can tell you, when I did run the snowblower the following day, the heated hand grips did get pretty warm, all right? They didn't get hot, they got warm, all right? Warm enough to comfortably keep your hands you know, comfortable throughout your snow plowing adventures, you know? So that being said, the heated hand grips that I made, the DIY ones, that lasted about 4 years, those ones actually got hot. Those ones really did get hot. These ARIENS ones, they get warm and to a comfortable level, all right? So they are a good purchase. I felt that they were, you know, a good purchase, and with my long sidewalk that I have, because I'm on a corner lot, I felt that they were, you know, a pretty solid purchase. So I would definitely recommend getting them. They seem to be really locked on tight with that epoxy. They don't seem to be coming off. And again, if they do come off, I'll figure out something with that little screw hole. No big deal. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you're interested in any more DIY projects, please give me some ideas, and I got plenty more things coming your way. Thank you, everybody. See you soon.